This is Apostles Grace TV, bring you intimacy with the Holy Spirit.
They are actually the definers of life. I want to take it gradually tonight so that I can set the coordinates. Tomorrow I will have time to minister in the Spirit. But I want everyone to be awoken to what was said concerning him. Because what makes you invincible begins when you can travel into the invincible. Jesus journeyed through the face of the earth. His goal was to start the church, but there was no way he could, because men have not traveled into eternity. He labored with them for over 3 years. His goal was to plant the embassy of heaven on earth, because the first embassy that was planted was Eden, and it was compromised. And when Eden was established, God brought Eden from the spirit realm. In Ezekiel chapter 28 verse 13, he said to Lucifer, you were in Eden, in the mountain of God. So Eden was not a garden that God planted in time. Eden was a dimension of God's embassy in the spirit that he planted in time. So that when you get to Eden, you can traffic heaven and earth as though you were in heaven. That's why God could show up in Eden and he doesn't move from his throne. Because it was a simulation between earth and heaven. And when that Eden was compromised, because the government of the serpent entered Eden, God wanted to plant another Eden. And the name of that Eden is called the church. But there was no man who could journey into the spirit. And Jesus gathered his disciples together and he said, who do men say I, the Son of Man, I am? And the disciples taught that spiritual knowledge was a function of structure. You know, that was the training they received. Because in Matthew chapter 17 verse 2, the Bible said a few days later, he took Peter, James and John to the mountain. And he was, as he prayed, he was transfigured before them. And the first thing Peter said was, let us build 3 houses here. He didn't know that this was actually a movement of the spirit that wise men should latch on and to align. He wanted to trap God, and that was not the way of the spirit. So when Jesus showed up, he said, who do men say I, the Son of Man, I am? They began to bring the conclusions of the schools of thought. He says, some say you are Elias. Some say you are Jeremias. Some say you are Isaiah. Some say you are one of the prophets. And obviously, none of them had traveled to the spirit realm. So it could be a monument. So long as his root is not in the spirit, it could be a monument. And that also translates to our lives. We can become mighty on earth, but we are monuments unless our root is in the spirit. You heard Daddy talking a while ago. He said, God told me, go to Asaba. It was not an assumption. That is the only way the gates of hell cannot prevail. 90% of Christians today are struggling. The reason is because their life is not rooted in the spirit. And if it's not rooted in the spirit, the gate of hell will prevail. You know, when I started, I come, I see buildings like this. I see ministers, senior ministers, and I think I can do what they are doing. And I jumped into it. And when I pioneered the cell, I did everything, spent money, prayed in tongues, and on the day of the meeting, only few of my friends came. Everybody I invited, some of them I sent text messages, some of them I called them few days to the meeting. I was nice to them. I now realized that there is a power that makes destiny to happen. It's only for men who journey into the spirit. The reason certificates are rejected is because it was not rooted in the spirit. The reason lives are wasted is because they are not rooted in the spirit. Wise men travel back to eternity before they live in time. If you don't journey back, you can't exist. You can breathe, but you will not exist and you will not count. Because when the princes come, it is the people that carry the light of God on their head that they dread. This is why we must labor to journey into the spirit. Jesus labored. And he said, who do you say I, the Son of Man, I am? And Peter said, you are the Christ. the Son of the living God. And instantly, Jesus woke up. He said, flesh and blood have not revealed this to you, but my Father which is in heaven. And on this revelation, I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. 3 things. The first is that nothing in time makes meaning except it takes bearing from the Spirit. Your life, your career, nothing will make meaning except it takes bearing from the Spirit. Why do I say that? All the answers they gave, even though it came from noble quarters, Jesus discarded them. That is the way God discards the lives and the assignments of men. He said, bring an offering unto me. And Cain went in the flesh and brought corrupt offering before the Lord, and he discarded it. But Abel brought of the firstlings of all that he had, and God received it. If it doesn't come from the heart and the womb of the Spirit, no matter how beautiful it is, it will be rejected. Some say you are Elias. Some say you are Jeremiah. He discarded them. So a man can show up before the Lord and say, I am good looking, so you will use me. Another man can show up and say, my father is a pastor, so you will use me. Another man will show up and say, I have money to spend, so you will use me. And God will discard. Because he doesn't know that the first labor is to travel into God first before he can travel out. Flesh and blood have not revealed this to you, but my Father which is in heaven. And he said, thou art Peter. So God's appointment begins when men journey into the Spirit. Thou art Peter. It is when an angel announces a man that the elements of this world bow before him. Man will struggle until Jesus was the Son of God. For 30 years he was irrelevant. When Jesus' life was outlined in John chapter 1, he said, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was with God in the beginning. All things were made by him. Without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life. The life was the light of men. 4 credentials. He was God. He was creator. He was life, and he was light. Yet God, creator, life, and light was irrelevant in this world for 30 years. Until at the baptismal service, he said, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Instantly, things changed. And Jesus did not go to announce himself. He ran to hide for 40 days. And after the temptation, when he returned, the Bible says his fame went abroad. How? What is the difference? How come 40 days is more relevant than 30 years? Because he said, this is my beloved Son. That's the same utterance. Thou art Peter. And the story changed. Because Peter has caught something in the Spirit. There are many of us today, we have many good ideas. What we don't know is that the third protocol fights everything that is good. This is why even your compound, if you don't weed it, grass will grow. But if you plant a flower there, you need to water it every day, else it will not grow. Why? Because anything good, the gates of hell will fight it. Many with great ideas, many with great destiny, but they don't know that they need to catch something in the Spirit first. So they come with their ideas. They come with their witty invention. They come with their understanding. They come with all the advantages, and the gate of hell cut them off. Because first, it must be caught in the Spirit. Second, it must be announced. And thirdly, the powers of destiny is activated. He said, and Jesus, Matthew 4:15, returned in the power of the Spirit. Nothing stops it anymore. That is one of the most significant benefits of encounters. And that's what I want to share in the next 10 minutes. Encounter is the activator of the power of destiny. And until the power of destiny is activated, the gate of hell will prevail. even if it is the mandate of God, even if it is the assignment of God, even if it is what the territory needs, the gate of hell will prevail. Until there is an encounter, there will be no emancipation. I pray somebody hears me tonight. I experienced something very terrible that turned my life around. Serving as a young man, and one of our colleagues from a very wealthy home never had need for alawi, and 2 weeks to POP, the father died. A young man that was already being ticked to work with Arik Airline over 10 years ago. Things were working on their own accord. His confidence was on the powers of his family, but Hades struck and his life turned around. All of a sudden, his father's friends turned their back at him, and I saw a glorious destiny turned upside down in a moment. And I now knew what the Bible meant when it said, woe unto him that putteth his trust in the arm of flesh. The reason is because there is a gate called the gate of Hades. Life cannot be lived casually. Everything you call an advantage can become a mirage unless there's an encounter to endorse it. This is why we can't live as normal men. Everything can become a mirage. Everyone must join into the spirit for himself. It is the call of existence that everyone will meet his creator. And wise men meet their creator in time, not in eternity. Because when you meet him in eternity, it might just be judgment. But if you meet him in time, you will straighten your path and your life will be a testimony. He is the Holy Ghost, Spirit of the living God. He is the Holy Ghost, Scepter of the King of Kings. He is the Holy Ghost, Spirit of the age to come. He's changing everything in obedience to God. The activator of the power of your destiny. None of you here is small. None of you here is disadvantaged. Can I tell you something? The family you come from is not necessarily an advantage or a disadvantage if you have the right encounters. Most of the great men that are changing their worlds today came from very poor backgrounds. But they knew what it meant to catch God. So they were God chasers. But the generation that we are in today is a generation that rely on only heritages. They never catch anything in the spirit. So even what the fathers labor for, when it is handed over, they waste it because they don't know how it is caught. I heard Warren Buffett said something. He said he will not plague his children with his wealth. It will be a burden for them. If they don't know how to create it, they can't manage it. And so it is in the spirit. Your tears can be wiped away in a moment if you know how to engage the spirit. Your sorrows can be turned around. The question is, what are the quality of your encounters? When you look at a man's life, the quality of his life is the quality of his encounters. The quality of a man's life is the quality of his encounter. Saul was a commoner from the tribe of Benjamin in one day, but he encountered a prophet and something changed. He migrated from
means it's finished.